Well, the University of Missouri is partnering with a South Korean company now for its biggest capital project to date.
A new nuclear research reactor that will cost more than $1 billion. WGEM Missouri Capitol Bureau reporter Hannah Falcon explains what this partnership means for the state.
The international partnership comes at a time of uncertainty with tariffs and federal funding, but President Choi tells me he's certain that the university will get the support it needs.
Putting ink to paper to make the partnership between the University of Missouri, Hyundai Engineering Company, and the Korean Atomic Energy Research Institute official. This $10 million contract is just the first step in Mizzou's largest project to date.
But there are 460,000 Americans that owe their lives to the discoveries and innovations that we create each and every day at this university.
The next-gen nuclear research reactor will be 20 megawatts, twice as big as the current one, and it will continue the work MUR already does in cancer treatment breakthroughs at an even larger scale. At the center of the country, Missouri is perfectly positioned to supply the nation with radioactive isotopes used to treat several types of cancer.
If we're going to have a world-class university, we need world-class infrastructure.
But there is the question of funding. MU System President Mun Choi says they already have about $200 million secured, a large amount of that coming from state funds. And the board is working to secure the rest through donors and federal funding. Former U.S. Congressman and current Board of Curators member Blaine Luke DeMeyer says the research and life-saving medication produced at MUR are hard selling points for tough-to-get federal research dollars.
But this can be something that can be impactful to themselves, their constituents, to the rest of the country, rest of the world. And so it's a really easy sell.
While the question of tariffs under the Trump administration remains in the air, Choi says the project should be unaffected by any potential changes.
Right now, at this point, we're just exchanging intellectual property. There is no physical assets that are being shipped from South Korea to the United States.
The entire project will take 8 to 10 years to complete. The university tells me it hopes this will be just the first part in turning Columbia into a medical research destination. Reporting in Columbia, I'm Hannah Falcon, WGEM News.